Hello everybody, I'm John. This is JP Strategic Investments, and today we have a lot to talk about Patriot One Technologies. We got some funding from Raytheon, as you can see on the screen right now, and we also had several different filings from some insider activity. Martin Cronin exercising some options and also selling a decent chunk of shares, so we will talk about that as well. But the first thing that I want to talk about here, Patriot One secures $2 million USD from Raytheon Technologies Corporation. Now, this is kind of an extension from the partnership, the funding that they already have received from Raytheon in the past. So this is an additional $2 million. I think the initial contract or the initial funding was about $3 million back in 2019. They kind of started this partnership. And the biggest thing for us shareholders is this is non-dilutive, right? Non-dilutive cash financing, no dilution going on here. This is just money that they get. And this is actually through, so the ITB, the Industrial and Technological Benefits Policy from the Canadian government. Basically, what this is, if we go and we kind of look over here, what happens is whenever there is a company, usually a foreign company, that gets a contract with the Canadian government for military, anything related to the military or defense contracts, things like that, they also have to submit, when they bid on the proposal, a value proposition. And basically, the value proposition is considered along with the bid on the contract. And the value proposition is kind of Canada's way of ensuring that money that the Canadian government spends on defense also kind of corresponds to money that is getting put into just the overall general Canadian economy. So when a company bids on a defense contract and is awarded the defense contract, they also then have to contribute what is considered quote unquote the same or similar value to the Canadian economy. So in this case, or in all cases, companies basically, when they're awarded a contract, they can choose different types of ways to fund or donate or things like that to the Canadian economy. And one of the ways that they can do that is through kind of investments or financing of different businesses within Canada. And so that's kind of what's going on here. Now, the thing that I don't quite know and don't quite understand is specifically why Raytheon is choosing Patriot One here. I know kind of why. That it relates to some of the things that Raytheon does with different technologies and things like that. It's kind of in line with what Raytheon is kind of interested in. But what I don't quite know is what Raytheon is really getting out of this deal. I know basically with a lot of things like this where Raytheon can choose to give this funding to basically any company that qualifies under the ITB policy. And so I'm sure there's other companies vying for this funding from Raytheon. And so in these types of cases, usually, Raytheon is getting some sort of kickback, whether even if it's not actual money, it's some sort of strategic partnership, and they call this a partnership here, but it's not exactly clear what specifically Raytheon is getting from this partnership. So if any of you guys know anything around there or have any ideas, definitely put those in the comments below. The only thing that I could find is the previous announcement from 2019 when they announced this partnership and the initial $3 million in cash financing, but that really doesn't say anything that Raytheon is specifically getting from this. They mentioned that supporting the Canadian economy is a good thing, and just kind of your standard press release, and saying that one of our missions is seeing the unseen, which complements Patriot One's concealed threat detection. So kind of saying that their businesses are kind of aligned with the same thing, but it doesn't say if they're kind of getting anything specifically out of this. So let me know if you guys have any ideas on that. The next thing, though, that I want to talk about is the activity going on with Martin Cronin. So if you guys, a lot of you guys have probably seen this. It's kind of going around some of the Facebook groups and things like that. Martin Cronin has exercised some options, but he's also actually sold some shares as well. So if we just kind of work from the bottom up here, we can see that he exercised 300,000 options, or about $55,000 worth, at an exercise price of 18.5 or 19 cents per share. So basically what this is right here is the reduction in options and the corresponding addition in shares. And then the same thing here, he exercised some more options at an exercise price of 30 cents. And this is the reduction in options and the corresponding addition of shares. And then he actually sold some shares. And the interesting thing here is that the sale of shares actually occurred before the options were exercised. So he sold the shares on November 2nd, and all of these other transactions happened on the 4th. And then we also have this weird little buy of just $1,800 on the public market, which I really don't know exactly what that's about. That actually occurred today and was filed today. But the main thing here that we want to talk about is this sale here and then these options being exercised. So most of these options, I believe, are options that were basically expiring that he was going to have to exercise anyway. So we shouldn't necessarily take this as a super bullish sign just on its face. Now we'll get into some things that are a little bullish about this, but if we look at actually their options, let me go right here. If we look at their options, we can see that as of July 31st, these are the options that were still available or were still issued and had not yet expired. And we can see 250,000 options expiring October 31st at an exercise price of 30 cents. That corresponds to these this right here, the 250,000 in volume at 30 cents. And likely the reason that the transaction date occurred after October 31st is because it takes a few days to actually go through the process of exercising those and then the issuance of the shares and things like that. And so that's likely why the exercise date is a few days after October 31st. Plus, October 31st was a Sunday, so it's going to be after that anyway. The other thing is I can't find the 18.5 or 19 cent options. They are not on the list here of available options, and they also if we go and we look through here, if you do a little control find and you look at the 18.5 cents, the only other 18.5 cent numbers on here are from a while ago, and it's not Martin Cronin. It's some different options here, and the only mention of those options I can find are actually in the newly released prospectus that we just got about them potentially raising money. It mentions that as of the date of this prospectus, which was like October 28th, the company has X amount of options with share exercise prices ranging from 19 cents to 248. I'm assuming they're just rounding up the 18.5 cents. So it mentions these here, but it's kind of weird that they're not actually in the list of options from their last financial statement. This is, if you guys are looking for this is page 32 of their annual consolidated financial statements from their investor relations page. And so I can't find them on this, which is kind of weird, but I'm assuming that they were probably expiring pretty close to these. I'm not sure why they're not on this list here, but it looks like that at least the 250,000 options with a exercise price of 30 cents, at least those were expiring on October 31st, and so the exercise of those options is not an early exercise. It's just those options needed to be exercised, and so Martin Cronin went ahead and exercised those. Now, what we do have is this sale here of basically 330,000 shares. So what we want to look at here is we got basically an addition of 300,000 shares and 250,000 shares, and then a subtraction or a sale of 330,000 shares. So there was actually a net addition to Martin Cronin's position of roughly 220,000 shares. It depends on how you want to look at it and how you kind of value insiders owning shares versus insiders owning options and things like that. Personally though, I do think this is bullish because while those options were expiring, he did choose to hang on to some of those shares, about actually $100,000 worth of those shares, even though he could have just exercised them and sold them and kind of taken the profit and got them out of his portfolio. So that in a way is definitely bullish to me because he's hanging on to those shares and not just getting rid of them. Anyway, I hope you guys found all of that helpful. Let me know, as always, if you have any questions in the comments below. And other than that, I will see you guys next time and have a great day.